Hey, 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 here I am for another day. Thursday, in fact. Hang on one second. There we go. I only have a couple of hours today. I have another work thing to go to in 2 hours. So this will be a short 2 hour stream. It's going to be straight up open panel. The link should already be pinned. If you want to come up, talk, chat, whatever. That's about all we're gonna do today. I think I have some. I'll look at the news. I think I have a few TikToks. I have a very interesting one from the Satanist that we'll look at. Um, I don't see much new going on the news. I think so. We'll leave that alone. So yeah, watch. I didn't know about this, but I guess this is New Hampshire. The Satanic Temple put up a Baphomet display at the Capitol. Let's watch this. This is sad, y'all. uh,
I would like to thank the Satanic Representation
there's
Campaign
like two
by
people there.
providing the means of this holiday display to be placed here on city property next to these other beautiful holiday displays.
It is done.
What do they do? Is he looking at his
Hail
phone?
Satan.
I don't get this. Bath. Wait, let me see. Okay, I don't like the vestments. Ah, no! Didn't this happen last time they tried this? I love how they got its eyes to glow, though. Poor thing. Poor Satanist. Oh, no. Alright, so that's the latest. It's satanic news. And then, I have a tweet, too, from a Satanist that I think is very, applicable. Where did it go? One second. Yeah, this is from Magus Peter H. Gilmore. He's from the Church of Satan. He says, individuals must be held accountable for the consequences of their actions and not be allowed to scapegoat society, history, or other supposed outside influences. I agree with that. I don't have a lot of sympathy for this narrative that nobody's in control of their actions or the choices we make. We're all being influenced by technology, culture, the algorithm, media, whatever. At a certain age, I guess about 18 in modern society, you are a fucking adult. You make choices. You're responsible for those choices. I could probably sit you down, or anyone could probably sit you down and walk through the process, the cognitive process you use to decide to make one choice over another. And that's how I look at life. That is my worldview. Is adults making choices, or humans making choices. Like, technically, I think even children make choices, but I'm more concerned. I don't spend my time around children, and I'm more concerned about the choices adults make. And I just watch people. I watch the choices they make, and then I make choices in response to their choices. It's like a board game, and that's it simplifies a lot of things, and it keeps the locus of control on me. If I fuck my life up through the choices I make, that's because of me. If I improve my life through the choices I make, also because of me. I've never really grown up feeling like I was at the mercy of a lot of outside influence. I didn't really have a lot, other than the ones I chose for myself, like the books I read, the TV shows, etc., etc. The people I chose to spend my time around. But also, I was thinking about this too. I was the oldest, and then I had three siblings come after me. And we had some steps and stepdad and all that somewhere in there as well. So the family got expanded. But initially, when I was very young, it was pretty much just me. And then my sister came along. My father was out of the picture pretty early. My mom worked all the time. So I was kind of the one setting the tone for everything else. I was the one in the position to initially make the choices that set the tone for the rest of the family. So I didn't have a sibling before me that had already made choices of their own that I had to react to. So I was kind of at the origin of, I guess, culture. Could you call it a family culture or the family dynamics? I had grandparents. I had an uncle that's he's less than a decade older than me, so he was more like an older sibling. But we didn't. He was around, but he wasn't like that dominant of a figure in my immediate day-to-day family life. And then my grandparents were in the background too. So in my day-to-day life, we had babysitters and caretakers, I guess, and they were authority figures in a way. That was the black women that raised me, but they were God, we love them. I love them. They were very down to earth. They weren't very domineering, and so I may have grown up differently than a lot of people that came into an existing system where kind of the rules and expectations were already set. They had to adapt into it. They had to make choices in response to that. I kind of grew up in a more free and open environment where I was the person that came into it first and got to kind of create it and shape it how I wanted it to be. And that might be a rare thing. That might keep me from maybe understanding and relating to people that did have a different experience of being programmed, controlled, influenced, dictated to, etc. And I need to keep that in mind, I guess. There's an experience gap. Um, there's an experience gap with me in general with the school system that I already know about. My school experience was not like everybody else's, but then I'm also realizing there was a kind of environmental experience gap as well with the family dynamics and birth order and the influences of the people around me. So I don't know how much I can use my own experience to try to understand other people's. But that doesn't take away my belief, which is based on experience and observation, because I'm a based empiricist and a rationalist, that people make choices. Whether they pretend to not be making those choices or not, if you break it down and shine the spotlight on it, there's a what's the word I'm looking for? There's agency. There's will. There is a active mental process somewhere in there that's being used to either accept existing choices, concede to the choices that are being offered, making the choices, etc. I don't believe in the absolute passivity of human beings. That goes against everything that I've watched and experienced, both in myself and other humans. So if you're at the mercy of something, or you feel enslaved by something, that's your subjective sense of things, I guess. But you have some kind of active participation in that, and you're making choices that are contributing to that experience somehow, some kind of way. All right, I guess that's all I have to say about that. All right, let's see what else is going on. This is kind of funny. I'll share this tweet. Or not haha funny, interesting funny, ironic funny, curious funny. It's a caveman at a laptop, and he says, "Man kill man, and you happy. Other man kill other man, and you sad. Why hypocrite?" And I think he's talking about the United Healthcare case and the Daniel Penny subway case and the different narratives and responses around it. Because again, people have different values, different things that are important to them. They make choices based on those values. They have reactions based on those values. And the matrix that these values are embedded in is this story that we tell ourselves. Like, to me, everything goes back to story. That's the basic fundamental building block of cognition, culture, society, human interaction, everything. I guess everything that's non-science, non-material, non-physical, which would be atoms and empty space. I think when you shift to the human realm and you start to examine at the root of everything in that domain, I think it can be broken out into story and then the individual elements that make up the story, which are images and then verbalized. There's a verbal component, thoughts about the images, kind of narrating and connecting and holding the images together. So there's an optical imagistic component to a story, and there's kind of an auditory verbal component. And the verbal component is a higher or more advanced form. It's probably more of the higher human brain, the neocortex, because animals can react and respond to images. They don't have this verbal narration that we know of going on in their brains. So they react to images. Everything's a visual stimulus and a reaction to something visual. But humans have this extra layer of verbal processing, I guess, of the images or around the images that we've developed. That's part of our advanced human heritage, evolutionary heritage. And so, yes, we're still doing the primitive thing of reacting to images. Like when you're walking on the road and you see the stick and you think it's a snake because you haven't taken time to fully, and you have that instinctive reaction of fear, you jump away or something. But then we have the part that can look and say, "Oh, that's not a snake. That's a stick." You don't have to react that way. You can chill out. That's that higher part. But it's all held together by story. And so I keep going. Our myth, I like story, narrative, myth. They all describe. Well, maybe story describes form, myth describes content. But the point is, the stories we tell ourselves that we maybe are not even aware that we're telling ourselves, I think, are the determining factor in our choices, our reactions, our values, the values that drive those choices and reactions, and also the pathway to discovering the values that drive those choices and reactions. And we can choose between values. We can choose other values. So again, choice, more choice. Okay. Twitter. Yeah, that's what I was doing. Man, it seems like a slow day today. Where's the peeps? Today's a little bit busy day. I did a job club yesterday, and it put me in touch with some additional resources. So I'm following up some of those in a few hours. I'm going to this orientation. And then I have another group I go to on Thursdays. Oh, also, yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah, I forgot two things. Okay. The first thing, we were supposed to have a special guest tomorrow. I'm still waiting around to see if that's going to happen or not, but there's an author named Zachary Elwood. I'll drop his channel. And he wrote a book called Diffusing American Anger, which I will also drop that link. It's available on Kindle. And he does a lot of work on political polarization and kind of the role that emotions play in conflict and keeping things polarized. And so I'm hoping he's able to come on tomorrow and talk about that kind of stuff because I feel like it's very topical to the conversations that show up on this stream. And so that may happen tomorrow. If it does, the stream's going to be an hour later than normal. It will be at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And I'll try to get that scheduled and posted ahead of time if I'm able. Otherwise, just show up tomorrow at the normal time and we'll do a normal stream. I also remembered that today was supposed to be that book club on that 4-hour work week. Hey, Ricardo, how are you? What's up? And I did start to read it, but it's, first of all, the guy's Asperger, I'm sure of it, or ADHD or something. He took a very non-traditional path through his life. And most of it is just his story and other people's stories, and I'm trying to extract like the bullet points of wisdom from it, and I'm not really getting that from the book. So I don't think I'm going to stick with it, and I don't think it has a lot to offer me in particular. It's very non-linear and kind of scattered. I do think I admire it for that he's probably a neurodivergent person that found his own path through life. But a lot of it is how to kind of live the life of a fancy, wealthy person without actually having the money to do it. So it's all about loopholes and shortcuts and like how to negotiate time out of the office and stuff like that. And I was looking for more practical things on how to build a foundation for long-term success. And this is more about how in the moment to decide what you want to be doing and then find ways in your existing life to make that happen. And it's kind of like hacking. It's just like hacking the current system to get what you want out of it. And I'm trying to more find ways to contribute to or participate in the current system. And so I don't think it's going to offer me quite what I was looking for. Hang on one second. So for that reason, I don't really have a lot to say about the book, so I didn't bother setting up a book club stream for it. All right, here. And for those of you that just got here, oh, I was trying to find that link. Hang on. To that book. This is going to be a short stream today. I can only go 2 hours because I have a thing right after this to go to. All right, here's the book, the Amazon link. You know what? I think I'll just put his website, and the Amazon link is on the website, but at least you can see his website and get more information. Ah, okay. We do have a guest today.
We do have a guest, and if you notice, there's a different profile picture than what it usually is, which means I'm back at home, and some developments. First off, finished with the exams and everything, but more importantly, my family has replaced me. They bought a cat.
Oh my God, you got replaced by a
cat.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm no longer important. They don't need me for emotional support or anything. They
do they keep it in your room? In your old room?
No. They've kept my room. My room is for storage for all the stuff the cat shouldn't reach. So my room is storage. I'm replaced by a cat, and well,
do you have siblings, or were you the only one there?
No, I have 2 siblings. So
okay. So it's not empty nest quite yet.
Yeah, no, it's not yet. And I mean, I already knew. Of course, I knew that we're going to get a cat. It's all fun, but it's still funny to think about that. You know, they just replaced me. I'm replaceable. I'm just a cog in the machine.
Well, again, story. If that's the story you want to tell yourself, is there a chance that we get to see the cat? What kind is it?
It's the gray brown kind.
Is it short hair or fuzzy?
Fuzzy. Yeah. maybe I'll snap a picture and I can show it another time. But right now,
Yeah,
it
that'd
just
be good.
left my room, and I don't really want to go chase it, especially as it's late and my family's trying to sleep. So,
Is it a Norwegian cat? I guess it
no,
is.
apparently it's a. My father said, "Oh, this is like a cat from Scotland, and it's the type they bred for royal courts or something." So
Oh.
maybe that's just him exaggerating, or maybe it is. But apparently, it's like a cat that's useless, but just there for comfort. That was bred by Scottish nobility, I guess.
So like it doesn't kill rats or anything?
Yeah, no. The only thing it's going to do is eat our food and stay inside and lounge around, just like I did.
Right, I was saying so like they might have upgraded if it's royal. Because you were only bourgeois.
That's so true. I'm not nobility. At least not yet. I need to figure out my Swedish side for that, because I know confirmed on my Norwegian side I do not have royal blood. At least not after 1300s, because we can't go further back. So at least the past 700 years, Norwegian side, no royal blood.
That
I'm
you
not
know of,
important.
because there's so many
Yeah.
branches to a tree.
Yeah. But like that we know of, we can trace it back to the 1300s. But then it's my name. We were originally farmers from a farm, but in the 1300s we end up at a farm. But there's two identical farms with the same name right beside each other, so we don't know which farm with my last name to continue from. So we're stuck, even though we technically could go further back because, well, we know which farm it is.
Are y'all
But it's
related? Are the
two.
two farms related?
I mean, very close to each other, the same name. I'm guessing it's maybe like the person had twins and they split it in two, or not, but I have no idea. And we don't know which of those two is us, so we can't go any further. We're stuck.
Oh.
It's so annoying.
Have you tried the Mormons? They have what's that registry? They keep one of the most extensive genealogical
Yeah,
registries on the planet. And
this is
you can it's all free, you just have to give them your information. That's the only price.
I think my aunt, she has used that as a resource, because I don't think she has the time and energy to go trace it back all the way to the 1300s without any sort of big resources. So I'm pretty sure she has, but that's also how I found out. I can say I'm indigenous to a certain extent because I have like 2% Forest Finn blood. So, I can claim nativity, even though Norwegians were here before all those other peoples. But, I have like minority blood. Yay!
Is that like being part native here in America?
Yeah, well, we don't really care about that because, well, Norwegians are the natives here. We're older than the Sami. We're older than everyone else. But yes, you can claim that, like, oh yeah, I'm Sami, or
Part indigenous. Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
BIPOC, basically. Norwegian BIPOC.
Yeah. Well, in my opinion, like realistically, if you have 2% blood, then that doesn't matter. That doesn't count for me to
Why
consider.
not? Why
Because
wouldn't it count?
it depends. I guess it depends on how you look at it.
I guess who
It's-
draws the lines is
Yeah, I know. It's actually funny, but I'm going to use Harry Potter as an example because they have their pure blood ideology. There's sort of two kinds. It's the one where your four grandparents are of this pure blood, thus you are, or you're not pure. And then another group, you're only pure blood if you don't have a single drop of blood from anywhere else. So like it's sort of this, like, do you count yourself as indigenous if you have one sort of source back in time, or must it be really recent? Really
there's two categories. There's the empirical and the social. And empirically, yes, you have the two drops of blood. So genetically, you share of that heritage. That's a scientific fact. But then socially is what we're talking, like how you construct that socially. Where are you going to be considered that on the social level?
Let's just say that the majority of Norwegians don't know what a forest fin is.
I don't even know what a forest fin is. It sounds cool, though, like something out of Tolkien.
I'm pretty sure it was basically in the 1500s or 1400s. A bunch of Finnish people were sort of set ablaze. They lost their homes, and so they migrated a lot in northern Scandinavia, and the thing that sets them apart is that they had a tradition of burning down forests to use the bark or something, and everyone hated them for it because they're burning forests and leaving, and so they
Yeah.
were hunted and persecuted for good reason. Like, that's deserved. You're just burning down forests, ruining it for everyone else. So yeah, no, I. It's just an interesting, fact for me. It doesn't matter. I wouldn't want part of that heritage either. Like, if I could choose to be like have some cultural connection to that, I wouldn't want it because everything I know, it just seems negative.
Oh.
Like, their only characterizing trait is they burn down forests, angering everyone around them. Like,
Well, that's the only trait that made it into the historical narrative, but I'm sure they were more complex than that.
yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, if they fled from Finland, they probably kept a lot of Finnish traditions, but I don't care about that. I probably have more Finnish blood from my Swedish side because Finland and Sweden was one thing for 700 years, a lot of interbreeding and everything. So I probably have more Finnish blood from that side, and that's more important to me. But my Swedish side, I don't know about because there's been no. Like, my aunt is the one who did it on the Norwegian side, on my paternal side, but there's nobody who has delved into the.
So the Swedish is from your mom?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a little harder to track because of the patronym, lack of
Yeah.
patronyms.
Well, it's also harder because we sort of reach a dead end with my grandfather really early because he grew up in the woods, son of a lumberjack, who was the son of a lumberjack, who was the son of a lumberjack, who was the son of a lumberjack. Like, they were just in the middle of the woods. Like, we don't know when they became there, like, or whatnot. And there's actually a family rumor that at some point in time, there was a royal or a noble bastard that was placed out in the woods, and that's the lineage. So, like, if that is true, that's really interesting. It's most probably just a story they tell their children to explain why they live in poverty in the middle of the woods. But, like, if it's true, it's really funny.
They just
Like,
threw him out in the woods if they were legitimate.
yeah, I mean, it's happened before, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. And I would very much like it to be true because that's an interesting family
Yeah, it
history. But my personal reckoning, I don't think it's that. I think it's just the parents telling their kids stories because they feel bad. Life sucks, so here's why. So we can blame it on something.
Oh, like the black people talk because it's oppression and slavery and white supremacy to explain why their life sucks.
Yeah.
Or the women talk about the patriarchy to
Yeah.
explain why their life
Like,
sucks.
oh, we're actually nobles, but we were born too early. We're not born outside of marriage, but we have noble blood. But because of that, they punished us, sent us out into the woods. Which I hope it's true though, because that's really funny. I would like that. I would like that. So I can now. You said earlier that I'm just bourgeois, but if that comes
Only
out-
because you said I got all that from you.
yeah. Well, it is true though. My great grandfather was literally a machinist, owning factory machines and controlling the factories, and scientist, and bought a bunch of houses, like a whole hill, sold it all. Like, yeah, that side is very bourgeois, but my mother's side, as I said, lumberjacks. Like, it's not. Yeah, but like, I grew up in an environment that's more descending from the richer side. So, like, that's why I've said earlier when we talked about like cultural capital, economic capital. Like, economically, I'm probably pretty average. However, on the cultural side, like, at least on my father's side, there has been a lot of intellectualism and bourgeois sort of spirit that's remained, even though we weren't necessarily as rich all the time. So, yeah.
So you have a lot of cultural, and you're acquiring even more of it now at university.
Oh yeah, I am.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully that's the thing. I feel like I'm just acquiring more knowledge, but knowledge is energy. Energy can be transferable. I can just, yeah, I know this, I know that. You can exchange stuff. You can use that. I use what I
Because
get.
knowledge, I remember I looked at the Chat GPT breakdown on cultural capital, and knowledge was one of the components
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Like the more you know that, like for example, if I know specific terms about agriculture, I can enter an entire sphere of society that most people won't. Like for example, farmers have their own lingo, they have their own understanding, their own little culture that you need to understand and have the knowledge that they have to be able to enter that sphere. And so, if you can learn that knowledge, then you suddenly have access to more of society.
Yeah, I guess that's with any group, any sub,
Yeah.
like
Although I think farmers are probably the ones that are most diverged after actual nobility. But we don't have nobility anymore. We abolished that, so kind of sad. I it would be
you
nice
think
to
we
have
should have
nobility.
nobility?
Oh, not you in America. No, no, no. But I
You want it
think
because you want to be part of that aristocracy.
sure. But I also like, well, sort of the American nation is founded on rejecting a lot of the old European traditionalism. But in Europe, I would have wished we kept more of that traditionalism. We kept the spirit of Europe more, and that is some sort of aristocracy. I mean, the Swedes still have it to some extent, and Norway, like technically, Norway had it until 2008 because we were technically bicameral like Britain. However, the House of Lords was just ceremonial. They just confirmed everything the House of Commons or the Storting said. But but doesn't really count in my books. I actually, though, what I would want, and I've thought a lot about this, because I am a young man. I dream. Like I have been spending tens of hours, maybe hundreds of hours, just imagining scenarios of how Europe should have transitioned into the modern age, as opposed to how it did. Because how it did was basically just rejection of everything old, and then bring back some of the good old stuff. But that wasn't enough. I would have liked a more union. Like, for example, my idea on aristocracy is, well, make it more meritocratic. That to get noble titles is meritocratic process, and then it's inherited for, say, 3 generations. Competence is somewhat inheritable, so it's decently likely that the son of a nobleman who received it due to competence is going to be competent. The son of that, a bit less competent. And the son of that, probably no predictability from the first generation. And then it's over, and then you have to achieve it again to be a noble. Like, you have this incentive
So
to
you
be as
think you
competent
think
as
you can
possible.
predict 3 generations that accurately?
No, not accurately, but I would say it's likely that if the grandfather was competent enough to earn a noble title, it's likely that his grandsons will at least be a bit more competent than average.
Based on what? Have they done studies? Is
Okay.
this empirical?
Well, I'm thinking and basing this on like more biological reality that a lot of traits are heritable, and a lot of traits related to competence are heritable, and so you can expect at least the son, and then maybe the grandson, and then it depends on how long you want to drag it. Like, no great grandson, not at all. Like further than that, but like the grandson, they still share a
Yeah, but
decent
I
amount
don't
of.
know how you could possibly predict which traits would be inherited by any individual offspring. So to build like a whole system on the assumption that the positive trait, the desirable traits, will more than likely be inherited by the children for 3 generations just seems like more wish based than fact based.
Well, then we can say it's wish based because I just like the aesthetic of nobility, and if it's sort of if you earn your rank based on competence, then I see no problem with nobility generally. Like, okay, maybe you can
Right, but it's
argue.
passing on that same rank to offspring that may not necessarily have merited it to the degree that the original
Yeah.
person that earned the rank did.
At the same time, though, this is also why I'm sort of conflicted on inheritance tax. That, sure, the kid doesn't deserve to get anything. He's just born. He has done nothing. But the parents do deserve to give on something to his children. And so having that incentive structure where what you'll do will really help your next 3 generations, that is a hell of a motivator. And I think that's fair to a certain extent. But it should also degrade because, well, at the nobility in Europe, its problem is that, sure, it's people. No, I'm arguing for a modified kind, and
I
like
think he's
if
doing like what if alt hist, the Norwegian
yes,
version
I mean,
of
if I was
what if
back
Europe had
in
done this instead of what it actually did.
if I was back in 1814 when Norway got independence, how would I set up the nation? How would I deal with the the structures of the past and the future? What would I do? And I don't think I would have abolished
Well,
nobility completely.
do you know why it was abolished? Can you explain that to us?
Oh, it's undemocratic. Like
So the
it's
values of democracy supplanted
okay. It's
the values of a rigid social hierarchy.
yeah, and well, okay. Aristocracy is inherently anti-meritocratic, and it's elitist. And so, when you have a meritocratic populist movement, which is what liberalism is basically, that will go against aristocracy, and that's the reason it fell, because the dominant movement in the philosophies, the sciences, the ideologies, the politics was to be more meritocratic, more populist, and that's the slow degradation of anything that's not meritocratic and not populist.
How is
So
merit a degradation? It seems like it would be an improvement
it
or
is
an
an
advance.
improvement. It is an improvement. It is. However, that's why I would like, instead of abolishing the institution of aristocracy completely, you instead have a merit-based selection mechanism.
Well, why don't you just have each descendant have to prove their, like, have each son have to prove their merit to keep the title, and if they can't live up to the standard that the parental figure set, then they lose their aristocracy. So that keeps it merit based. I have no problem with elitism that's based on competence, but just an
Yeah,
arbitrary elitism that itself seems anti meritocratic.
I do agree, but also, like, the whole idea is that you should be able to do something that benefits beyond your lifetime to a great extent. Like, that's actually
You
one of
you
the
can, but you can't pass on things like traits like intelligence and competence and stuff. You can pass on material things. Like, I have no problem with inheritance and
well, you can
parents
pass on
passing on their
intelligence.
material fruits to their offspring, but there's no way to pass on the intellectual or cognitive traits at all. So if so, the elitism would have to be based solely on the wealth they're able to pass on.
Well, to be fair, though, a lot of competence is genetic. So, like, you can
Well, that's what
expect.
you say. I'm not convinced.
Yeah, okay. Well, then, then that's a
It
different
it
argument.
still has to be proven at the individual level.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, sort of. I would think that at least further that down, but at the same time, I also want a way to reward a person beyond their lifetime.
What they can reward them financially, but how? Like, it's not even possible
Status.
to reward someone beyond your lifetime with personality traits that you can't. You can't pass those. You can't will those to be passed on in any kind of way. You can educate the best you can, but
Well,
you have limited control over what qualities show up in your offspring. You have more control over the material advantages you can pass down to them.
okay,
But
yeah,
then I
that
wouldn't
is very
want
true.
basing elitism on those material advantages seems to go against the whole point of ensuring that merit in the first place. So it sounds like meritocracy is still, you're right. You want the people that most earn are most capable and that can earn their higher positions to have those positions. But you can't guarantee that through any kind of inheritance structure other than the
Mm,
material side of it.
that is a fair
So
argument.
I wouldn't want a really competent noble with an idiot son. I wouldn't want that son to have an unfair advantage just because he's the son of this competent noble. I would want him filtered out of the top tier because I'd want that tier based on merit. And
Yeah.
so a system that lets those people in to a tier that they don't actually earn or deserve to be in doesn't seem like the system that you even actually would want.
Well, my argument is that I think the parents deserve to be able to give something more to their kids. But yeah, I see your point, and
They
this is
like
a thought
what?
experiment.
I'm just we're limited by sheer physical reality. What more can they give other than the material? They can give education,
The
but
noble
there's no
title.
guarantee that that
Like,
education is going to have any particular effect that they want it to have.
well, they can give on the noble title, and I like the aesthetic of that. I like the aesthetic
So this is
of
just to
all
say you're just
traditionalism.
romanticizing a certain aesthetic, but it has no practical. Like if you look at the practical
Well, okay, actually, though,
effects it has on the desired society, like you're trying to build, it really doesn't contribute anything to that.
I do think it does, though, because the reward for competence is much higher than in our society. In our society, it's mainly just material wealth and maybe a bit of political power. But if you enshrine certain privileges behind a competence selector, a lot more people will try for that. And I mean, I'm not a monarchist. I am for democracy, but one of the good arguments for monarchy is that they are generally more, well, how do you call it? They are more wary and more careful with what they rule because it's actually their possession. A politician elected for 4 years, it isn't his possession. He has no connection other than, oh, I want to be elected
Well,
again.
he has to live in the same country as everyone else,
Sure,
so
sure, but that's
he's
a
still a
weak,
stakeholder in the outcome of that society.
yes, but that's a weaker motivation than actually legit owning it. My whole life's purpose is to rule this as best as possible. I'm not saying the monarchs don't have bad monarchs, because they do, and a bad monarch is way worse than a bad politician. But I am saying there is a legitimate argument to be made that generally monarchs will be more careful in controlling their nations. Not necessarily better, but at least more careful. And no, I'm not actually for a system where a monarch rules, but I am saying that is a legitimate argument. That's something
It's
that,
based on generalization. I don't know how legitimate something based on generally is, because
well, everything is based on
the goal
generally.
is to keep individual monarchs out of power that are going to be destructive to their society. So just saying that in general they're going to rule this way doesn't address any one individual monarch.
No, it doesn't. But also, you have to, when we talk about monarchies, you have to split it into two, like the absolute monarchs of the Enlightenment period and the feudal monarch. Because the feudal monarch, if they fucked up, they were just getting thrown out. Like that, they didn't have that much power. Like modern elected politicians have more proportional power over their nations than feudal kings. So, but no, I'm not arguing for feudalism either, because that's a horrific stratified society. There's no movement, there's no dynamism, no meritocracy there.
Are you a mole bug? Curtis, what's his name? Curtis Yarvin.
Oh, never. I've never watched him, and maybe this is a bad reason for not watching him, but I don't like his face. He doesn't look nice, and I don't really want to spend hours of my
I
time
think you're an
listening and
aesthete
to
underneath
him.
all of this. I think you have a strong sense of aesthetic,
Oh, of course. I mean,
beauty over
sure,
truth.
not all the way, but if you already have enough truth to make a really functional society, then have some beauty. I mean, like
Instead of
that's a
some
good.
justice, truth, beauty, and justice, we have the woke that are prioritizing justice over truth,
Yeah.
and we have the
Well,
aesthetes.
also justice and fairness, that you can debate what that means. Like for me, fairness is proportionality, but for
Yeah.
some, fairness is equity. Everyone gets the same thing, or everyone gets what they deserve. Both are definitions of fairness, but it depends on the purpose. So like what I consider fair is probably similar to what you consider fair, but our definition of fair is not the same as other people's what they consider fair. Because, pro- some people don't care for proportionality. They want everyone to have the same thing. Like that's, well, look at communism. Like that's a good example.
Yeah, it's too fundamentally. Um, I think even Jonathan Haidt, I think, says this in his Moral Foundation. It's too fundamentally distinct. Actually, the fair. What is it? Fairness. What's the pole? The pole to fairness. He says there's a liberal version of it and a conservative version of it that's
Yeah,
more
I'm searching it up.
proportional, and the liberal version is more equity based.
I'm guessing it says it's
But that
the
it's the same moral
equality.
foundation.
Okay, see, fairness, cheating. What? Yeah, but there's two. There you have fairness, but you also have. Okay, this is annoying to read. Wow. I
It's
thought there was
the
one
free
that
rider
said,
problem ultimately.
yeah, yeah, like
Fairness cheating, yeah.
yeah, like I am very open in that my moral view includes a lot of aesthetic and how it looks and how it feels. Like the most important thing is that it functions. At the core, a house should be livable.
So
But
would you sacrifice aesthetics to functionality?
if you cannot have functionality with aesthetics, then yeah, functionality must come before aesthetics. But if you
Okay.
can have those together, then you should. That's sort of my moral standpoint. Like, if you must choose one, choose functionality. But if you can, then you should combine them. Because
But aesthetics is also like personal and subjective too. So
yes,
that's
it is. But that's, I'm my own sort of aesthetic. And if I was a leader, I would push that aesthetic. Okay, not really. If I was a leader, I would sure push my own aesthetic, but I will also have variance. I like variance, even though even though I don't listen to my favorite song all the time, even though
What
I
is your
have
favorite song?
what is it though? I don't know. I don't actually. What is my favorite
Beyonce.
song? No, I don't listen to her.
Oh.
It's maybe the one that brings the most feelings, if that's a way to define it. That is probably Avicii's "Hey Brother." That's more for sentimental reasons, because that was the sort of first song I really began to love as a kid. It was my childhood. It's sort of the symbolic of my childhood. And Avicii, he committed suicide when I was young. That's the only celebrity death I've ever been sad for. Like I
Oh.
remember legit crying because he was my childhood. And so probably that's the one that brings the most amount of feelings. But I don't listen to it much.
I've never heard of him. I'm gonna have to check it out.
You haven't heard of Avicii?
No.
The
Well,
biggest
we just
DJ?
have Robin here, that little
The-
Swedish dance girl. We don't have all the other stuff. And
The
ABBA.
biggest DJ of
And
all
Ace of Base.
time?
Well, maybe it's a generational thing. I've never heard of him.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard of Avicii in the chat? Do y'all know who? Is it?
They
am
have
I-
to have heard of Avicii.
You know, I'm
Come
old.
on. They have to have heard of Avicii, please.
Never heard until now. I'm looking him up. Let's see. The song came out in, oh Lord, 2013. That's about the time Taylor Swift came out, and I was into her. So I wasn't completely divorced from pop music. And Robin, I think, came out a little bit before that.
That's strange. I thought it was like a global film. Like,
It's a
his
nice
top
song. Wow, they have. Oh my God, the Swedish trailer parks are nice. Y'all have nice trailer parks in Sweden.
His top
They're like
song
mobile
is
home
2.5
estates.
billion listens on Spotify. 2.5 billion. The next is 1.9 billion, then 1.4 billion, then 1 billion, and another 1 billion. Like, it's massive.
I like it.
Yeah.
Are those Swedish Marines? They look American.
I don't know what you're watching. You're
Oh,
not
the
sharing a
music
screen.
video. Here, I'll drop it in the chat. Okay, well, Nova, who's also of my generation, has heard of Avicii, so
Wonderful.
it could be me.
Maybe.
I kind of left the music world after some point and quit keeping up with. I did that with movies too. I got off the
Yeah.
carousel.
I mean, I haven't watched a movie in ages. Well, okay, maybe from time to time, but like I haven't actually wanted and I'm gonna watch a movie now. If
I
I'm
thought
watching a
you and
movie-
your roommate were watching movies for a while.
Yeah, but that we haven't done that in a while because we realized that we would rather just do other stuff than watch the movie.
Hang out on YouTube.
Yeah, like honestly,
Wow, we're competing with movies now. Where's the?
this is more entertaining.
Yeah,
But,
where are the numbers and financial compensation to show for? I feel like if you're winning over a movie, you should have more to show for it than I do.
Hey, you know, Maybe I'll give you a membership. Maybe that's going to be the compensation.
You would give me 99 cents?
I'd give. Actually, that could be a Christmas gift. Yeah, how do I do this? That's
I'm
actually
not sure. I think under the video there's a join button.
yeah, because I
You could even
realized that.
gift memberships.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give it to myself because I don't
Noblesse
have one.
oblige, the generosity of the nobility.
Exactly. And I realized because I checked my finances that so I thought I had a strict budget the entire semester, and now I come to the end and I see, oh, I have $3,000 left over. It's like I am
Damn.
I'm really financially safe now.
And
So
do you get more in January, or is that for the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
next semester?
In January I get 3,000 more, and the remaining months I get $1,000 a month.
Damn, you're rolling in it.
Yeah, so I can spend a few
Yeah,
cents.
buy a ticket.
How do I do this? Funny enough, this is also going to be my first ever membership.
Oh, I'm excited.
How do I? Okay,
Are you serious? Oh, WA? Wow. Well, where? Okay, it is not trickling down to the workers. We need to unionize or something.
Oh,
'Cause
look at this!
I am not seeing any of that popularity.
God damn, Jeff, look at this. Taxes. I pay you 7 krones. I pay 1.8 krones in taxes to the Norwegian state. They're taxing this.
Norway is fucked up. Y'all need to reform. I hope you do get into politics. Drop this. And then the other thing is the part you pay me, YouTube takes a third of. I only get even 2/3 of it.
So the Norwegian state takes 25%. YouTube takes 30% of what's left over. Like,
Yep.
that's very.
That's why Cash App
nice.
and Ko-Fi
Yeah,
are a lot better.
I want
'cause
the cool
get more
badge
of
on
it.
YouTube.
Oh, and I'm Shift happens on her channel. She has the coolest member badges, and it inspired me to try to think of some cool like member badges of my own that I could create, so that y'all won't be stuck with just the plain YouTube versions. I just need to figure out how to do that, and then think of what the badges can look like.
Yeah. Welcome. I'm now a member.
Oh, look at that! This is a historical moment, y'all. And I don't know
Merry
if you know
Christmas,
the
Jeff.
history of this channel, but Dolbez was my very first guest, so this is a milestone right here.
Yeah.
He went
Merry
from
Christmas,
guest to
Jeff.
member after 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. It's not 2 years. It's
Here, you
1
need
year,
you
like
deserve
8
some
months.
fanfare, and I'm gonna play you some dance instead of some rock in honor of Avicii. As soon as I can find it, where's my dance music? Well, dang, I don't know where it is. Dance pop. Here we go. It's not Avicii, but it's whatever StreamYard provides. Thank you, Dolbez. This was a great Christmas gift. Happy holidays. Spread the cheer.
Is it even $1?
On my end, it shows up as 99 cents, but and so like 60 cents, I guess.
Yeah.
This is dance music.
I don't think that's dance music, but I'll take it. It's
It's the StreamYard default.
yeah.
All right. Well, I won't torture you with that any longer. Thank you. I have a Rumble account for one reason, because on my old channel, I had one video removed for misinformation from one of the guests. They didn't like something he had to say, and in order to keep it archived, I created a Rumble account and re-uploaded it on Rumble so that video would still be preserved for people that wanted to see it. And that's the only thing I've ever done on Rumble. So Rumble is where I'm going to put the videos that get taken off of YouTube. And so far, there's only been one.
So there's an incentive to actually making things get removed from YouTube, so you expand your Rumble presence.
But that seems like there's more people using YouTube than Rumble. So expanding the Rumble presence would seem like a poor use of.
Yeah. Especially as like the major reason people go to Rumble and the other alternative is they're too controversial to be on YouTube, and well, you're not that. So there's no reason for you to go to a smaller
I'm not
audience and
controversial.
smaller. Well, maybe you are, but you're not controversial enough.
Wow, I'm good. That's a good thing, but I'm
Yeah.
shocked after everything I've heard on the stream.
Yeah, well, they. Oh, this reminds me of when Twitter, back in the olden days, when it banned Trump, but not the Taliban. Like, what is exactly
Oh
your incentive
yeah.
here? Like, why do you
That's
ban
the
him, but not
problem
the
with
Taliban?
private censorship. It's all so arbitrary, and there's no like due process around it.
Yeah. It is hilarious, though. Like, I, as a European, find it hilarious, and I'm glad it happened because it's funny. They banned Trump, but not the Taliban. Like, what? That
And now
is.
everyone's over. All the woke people went on over to Blue Sky, and they
Yeah.
say it's all full of like violence and death threats and people cheering for murderers, and which is good. I'm glad that people are getting a window into the psyche of that group.
Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna open an account there though. Like before, I tended to have a policy where I'd follow a lot of my opponents, people I dislike, just so I can, get their pulse. But I am not willing to get yet another social app and create yet another user just so I can doom scroll on opinions I get angry at and I don't like. It's just
Oh,
bad mental health. Like I
yeah.
noticed that now. If I scroll a lot on Reddit, I eventually get in a bad mood because there's so much I just
Well, the
dislike.
algorithm is outrage driven anyway.
Yeah,
It's designed to. That's the part of your brain that keeps you engaged.
yeah.
Is fear porn and outrage porn.
But there is a difference, though, at least between Twitter and Reddit, in that Twitter some often leaves me disappointed, whilst Reddit leaves me actually angry. So, like, I prefer the Twitter one because usually I get disappointed by more those who share my own opinions, and if they go too far or they take something the wrong way or whatever, like that disappoints me. Oh, you could have been better. But on Reddit, I'm just genuinely angry. Like, what is this? This is
Is it
idiotic. And
like
just
what's the difference but with Reddit? Because it's more of a forum and you can. It's less because Twitter can isolate you into a little echo chamber.
uh, it's more that on Reddit, every single subreddit is leftist. Like Reddit, they like I know a lot of like studies where they analyze the political leanings. Like
Let me try
Twitter,
to find them.
almost 50-50. Like Reddit is like 70-30, 60-40. Like it's really skewed. And they act like the moderators are very
I know.
no.
I don't even use Reddit because I kept getting
Yeah.
banned from
And even
mods.
worse thing, it's owned by China. And people like it's owned by China, so the admins are Chinese. The moderators are leftists because, well, the admins can dismiss any moderators they don't like. And if the admins accept the rule break, then it can happen. So, for example, technically you aren't allowed to be banned from a subreddit because of your participation in another subreddit, but that happens a lot. So the mods are breaking the terms of agreement or whatever, but the admins do nothing because they're Chinese. They love this.
This is from 2023. I don't know how accurate it is, but let's see. 25.
Yeah. It doesn't seem inaccurate because you will notice a lot of pushback, but usually that pushback gets deleted because the actual people who can delete and moderate are majority leftists, unless it's a really
Well, the
small.
leftists, I think, are more inclined to do that kind of censorship and policing to begin
Yeah.
with, which is one reason I left.
Oh, actually, though, Jeff, I just a few days ago I posted a post on Reddit for the first time in a while. Got a lot of upvotes. However, it was about the Bible, and so it was really funny to see how there was basically a civil war. Every other comment is like, "Wow, this is so cool." Another, this doesn't excuse your logical fallacies, or like this doesn't prove anything. And I'm like, bro, I'm just sharing an interesting fact. I'm not
What did you
Christian.
say about the Bible?
Have you seen the graph of the Bible's internal references?
No.
Okay, let me. And
Or
I
yeah,
can just
post a
no.
link.
I'm gonna send you the I'm gonna send you the
Okay.
Reddit post so I can get like one extra upvote.
Okay. If I haven't
Wait,
signed into Reddit in so long.
wait. I searched u/Reddit. No, I meant u/Dolbus. That's also what I love. I have my same username on everything. It's so easy to just. Okay, wait. Can I post in this one now that I'm a moderator? Now that I'm a.
Um, Not a member, but I can make you. You want to post it? You could post in the private chat,
Yeah, I can.
and I'll get it.
I
All right, let's take a look.
yeah.
Ooh, wow! What a cool post. Did you choose that graphic? Wait, what is?
I
Wait,
found the graphic.
what?
This
Okay,
is
hang on. I gotta show this.
people have probably seen it.
This
It's a
is cool.
pretty
This is
famous
the
graphic.
coolest thing I've ever seen come out of the Bible. It's the rainbow.
Well, yeah, you're just saying it because it's the rainbow.
So what? Is this Genesis here and
Yeah,
Revelation at this end?
yeah, it's all the different books. I think verses or whatever. Like I don't remember exactly how. Chris,
Intertextuality.
who is it? It's Chris. Chris Harrison. I don't remember how he split it, but yeah, this is the Bible referencing itself.
So this is all you posted. It wasn't even text. You just posted an image, and it generated all this controversy.
Yeah, 4,000 upvotes, 800 comments.
What is this
Half of
poor
them
little
are like,
book that nobody's? It's not talking about anything.
yeah. Oh, one of the comments is hilarious because it's exactly what is happening. I have religious trauma, so I'm gonna disrespect people's belief. I'm a redditor.
It's like a Rorschach. They see what they want.
Yeah, they see a cool fact about a text which 2 billion people view as vital, and they immediately, and see how even the comments supporting this need to add like, but I'm not a Christian. Like this is why it's one of the most interesting books ever written, and I mean that purely in terms of how rich the text is. Like they just tiptoe around, like, oh no, I'm not religious. And then comment, people say that, but it's 100% cognitive dissonance. It's terribly written, like middle school grade level writing. And how could it not be? It has been cut up and messed with over. Yeah. It was
okay. I
hilarious.
found the original.
The one by Chris Harrison.
It's people and places. I think. I guess it's all the names of the people and places referenced in the Bible by the different books and their relation to each other.
It's a really interesting graph, and one of the reasons I want to read the Bible. I just want to read
Have you read it before?
No. Well, okay, I've read segments. I've read Genesis because I had in religious class, I had a task where I was going to sort of compare the origin stories of Christianity and Islam, and so I had to read a bit through the Quran and the Bible, and so I did. But the Quran, it doesn't have a single part dedicated to origin story. It's just fractured. It has some parts here and there.
And it's organized by
worse.
length. The lengths of the different surahs.
Yeah, so it was harder, and but I don't actually remember much, and I don't really care. I'll be honest.
He did another one for. Oh wow, this was interesting. He did another one
Quran?
for contradictions.
Okay. Oh
within
yeah.
the Bible. We could do a Bible book club. I tried to read it live on stream, but I got stuck at Abraham.
Words.
I never made it past Abraham.
What I really want to read is the Book
Abram.
of Job, and that's purely because I saw a. You didn't post the link correctly, by the way. It's not.
Oh.
What is the thing? Yeah, I want to read the Book of Job because I don't know. I saw a cool animation of it, a Bible animation, and so I want to read it. And I also just want to read the Gospels because it's sort of fundamental. But then I also want to read all the Gospels that weren't included, like the Gospel of Judas, because it's interesting. Like what was not included and what and what was. Not that I'm saying they are legitimate, because a lot of them seems to be faked. They were written way after other ones, and a lot of them are just Gnostic excuses, but it's still fascinating. And I mean, I'm not a Christian. I can find value in things they view as heretical. I don't have to consider what the Christian theologians and Christian church fathers viewed as heretical. Thomas Aquinas is definitely intelligent, but he doesn't dictate that, only these books can be of value to you. Like, to Christians, he does. He does dictate. Like, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't really consider all the excluded books, because they were excluded for a reason. They're not in line with Christianity, but for non-Christians,
Why
it's
would
very
why would you
valuable.
not consider it? They were mostly excluded on aesthetic grounds because the Bible was they were trying to unify it aesthetically.
Yeah. And I mean, fair, I guess. Well, okay. I know I'm going to anger a lot of Protestants on this, and I don't really have any dog in the game, but I'm still going to say that I believe Catholicism is truer than Protestantism. I think their claim, their justification, their apostolic succession is just
Truer in what
more.
way? None of it's correspondently true.
Okay. Again, now it's an aesthetic argument. I just find Catholicism cooler and better looking, you could say.
Aesthetics.
And secondly, I think the fundamental argument of Protestantism is to put the Bible above the church, or to say that the church, the Bible is superior, or that
It's
sola
putting the
scriptura.
individual reader or interpreter
Yes.
above an authoritative source
Church.
of.
And I think the church is, if you consider, I think it's more legitimate, and I think the church is important. I think there's a reason the church compiled the Bible as they did, and they were the ones who compiled the Bible. The Bible is vital. It's the most important book, of course, but the church still has a big place, and I'm not. Yeah. But again, I'm not Christian, so you don't have to believe this at all. But I did just anger probably the majority of your audience.
I don't think we have many Protestants around here anyway.
You sure?
So I don't know.
I don't know though. I just find him cooler. Let's leave it at that. I don't even remember why I went on this tangent. I was going to use it as a setup for something, but I forgot what
We
I
were
was
talking
saying
about that
to.
Reddit post that you made.
Yeah, Reddit doesn't like. Okay, I don't know. This is a different thought, but it's basically a religion that also, that there's no argument to be made. The universe is just materialistic. It's just deterministic. It's all logical, and logic is the truest thing of all. Like, that's also religious beliefs. Like, they're just as Reddit
Well,
atheists.
I guess it depends on what you mean by religion, because they have
Yes, it
empirical
does.
foundations to them in a way that other religious beliefs don't. So there's something different about those beliefs.
Yeah, I suppose so. That's the issue, though, because everyone has different definitions of everything. Like, as we discussed earlier, equality, or let's say fairness, like, that's a wholly different definition. And neither of them are wrong. It's just two different definitions of the same thing. Like, I can admit that I certainly can understand why everyone gets the same thing would be considered fair, but I also get why everyone getting what they deserve could be considered fair. Like, I understand.
That's why I'm a nominalist. I think it's much more useful to talk about the actual thing itself,
Yeah.
and not the words that people are trying to use to describe it.
Yeah, but like, we want to be able to have some general consensus of words, and that's why we discuss stuff. So we gradually develop this consensus. We get onto new stuff.
Yeah, but
like,
it's a process that we
Yes.
have to could like engage in each time with each new person. That's part of intersubjectivity.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any way to like dogmatize that once and for all.
Honestly, though, we kind of had it fixed, the issue of fairness we talked about, because it was called equity or equality. Equality meant basically you get the same chance, the same shot at this. Equity, you get the same results. Like, we already had a sort of definition, but now the social justice warriors, the leftists, they basically began using equality and equity interchangeably. And now it's, yeah. It
Well, no,
used to.
no, because their concept. No, they didn't. They changed the concept of equality in the process. Because what
Yeah.
they mean by equity is not what you and I mean by equality.
Yes, exactly. They equated them, and then they made equality be the same as equity in their vocabulary, and that's what they enforce. Like, I, it's in Norwegian politics. There's actually a big consequence of this in that it split a party, I believe. So the party called Venstre, which left means left, it was originally united under a social liberal ideology, and so it functioned on equality of opportunity, and that you should have a welfare state that tries to equal the playing field, but accepts fully unequal outcomes. Try to give everyone the same sort of start, and then see how it goes, and you accept the results. But then, as you had more and more ideological conflict internally, it split into two, where you have socialist left, which is heavily on the equity side. That no, we need equal outcomes. Like it's sort of a different idea of what the welfare state should be. Should it be there to ensure everyone gets a fair and the same starting point, or should it
Well,
be there
that's the
to get us the
argument. Is the
results?
opportunities were not fair because the same people kept losing over and over and over. So they had to come up with the story to tell themselves of why that was
Yeah,
happening, and they decided it's because what looked like equal opportunities were not the opportunities themselves were not actually equal. They were stacked against some of the participants, and I don't believe that. But that's a narrative that became credible to a lot of people, and then so
yeah.
they shifted to the outcome end in response. And the only way we can know for sure if the opportunities were equal is if the outcomes start be appearing equal.
You know what I'd want to do? I wish I could just, for a single moment, travel a few hundred years into the future and read a textbook about this period of history. How will they talk about it? Because, if you look at how we talk about the past, it's we are superior, we're better, or whatever. But and like our moral systems are the best, like democracy is the best, no matter what. But like in the ancient past, when Athenians and Greeks in the Middle Ages looked back at the classical period, they were against the democracy. That, oh, we were so foolish in the past. Look at us, so dumb, so immoral, so bad. But, now we look at back at our medieval past and we're like, what? Against democracy? What is that? It's so foolish. But like in the future, how will we view ourselves? Well,
I make two predictions. A, there's not going to be any books because no one's going to be reading. And B, it's going to be written by an AI and not a human. So whatever the
Ooh.
official or traditional account is going to look so completely different than what we're used to thinking of as history.
Yeah,
It'll
I
probably
just
be
hope we're
a movie
viewed
or
as.
like a immersive VR experience or something created by a computer.
No, it'd be a chip you download right before the test. You wouldn't even need a test. You just plug in the chip. You get the knowledge when you need it.
But depending on your values and it like I don't know why most humans wouldn't prefer freedom to slavery, but it seems like some people do like to turn their lives over to other people and not have the burden or responsibility of determining things for themselves. But as far as freedom and correspondent truth, it seems like democracy or liberalism is the system that has most let those values thrive. And so, even looking back, unless they're looking back from a completely different set of values,
Yeah,
I don't know why they would reevaluate democracy differently. If
that's
that's the one that was most supportive of those. So, we're assuming that's the important question is what values are they going to be looking back with that they're evaluating the history with. It may not be the same ones that we currently hold dear.
I hope they're both radically different, but also similar enough that they will view us as a sort of prototype of the modern age. Sort of how we view the Renaissance. It's not modern, it's not the best, but it's sort of a prototype of what it is going to become. The
Yeah,
Renaissance and the
some of it.
period
It
right
was
before.
certainly a
Yeah.
contributor to it.
Yeah.
One of
And
the
so I
streams.
hope our time is viewed as that, sort of the prototype to the next sort of moral system, because at least then we got something right. And of course, maybe the future is wrong. That can happen. It does. I'm not. It History doesn't always go. Uh,
Well,
up.
history
You
is
know,
interpretation. Like, history is just fitting facts into a story. And so that's going to change. That's going to change through time with each new culture and generation. They're going to look back. Certain facts are going to be more significant than others, and they're going to fit them into an existing story that reflects their values and their concerns, etc. So there's not ever going to be like a definitive account of history.
unless we genetically modify and only use clones. We choose one human by lottery. His genetic code is what's going to be cloned for all of eternity, and we have AIs run everything. Every human is identical, and
The
AIs do anything of
Matrix.
value. Yes, we just
Good.
have our own little paradise, and we're all identical Daves. Maybe you'll get picked in a lottery, Jeff.
I don't want a society created on my genetics. I don't. I want a clone enough of me to run an effective business, but I would not want a whole society of me. I would even want to put up with myself that for that long.
Is it narcissistic of me to say that? It would be really interesting, and I really would want to observe what 1 million of me would do. Like, just give me a plot of land and 1 million. Let's set up a society.
Well, we do like ourselves.
Imagine, because if we include knowledge, we just instantly clone, then any system will work because we all have the same ideas, the same standpoint. It's going to be more difficult if it's
But
just
I don't know how
clones.
growth would happen. To me, you've reached stasis at that point.
Yeah. Well, if you split yourself in two now and you have identical experiences, you'll basically be the same. But if you have different experiences, the changes will accumulate and you will get larger
So
and
the
larger.
genetics will stay the same. So nurture will be the only determining factor.
Nurture and randomness, yes. So just experience. Although, to be fair, what you find is that kids or twins are more alike each other near death than they are in childhood. Because if you consider every event, sort of the situation does restrict what you can do, but inside of that, your genetic tendencies will push you one or the other direction. It doesn't mean it's going to force you to do something, but if you are generally more extroverted, then on average, in those types of situations, you will pick the extroverted outcome. And in childhood, you have a lot fewer of those situations where you choose and diverge, and so randomness plays a bigger part. But as you get more and more experience, the sort of randomness is just equated out.
And then the genetics, like
yes,
people fall into their genetic tendencies with
on
enough experience.
average, you accumulate on average. Like you are the older you get, the more alike your your parents you become, because you become more and more genetics as you sort of equalize the randomness of childhood, nurture, of experiences. Like if you have 10 very vital experiences, and there's your genetics means that you have a 60% chance of doing the sort of genetic way and 40% of doing another way. 6 events you did the genetic way, 4 events you didn't. That's pretty big, but like over time, I'm trying to explain something I don't fully understand, but at least
That's
statistic.
unfortunate because I was wanting a deeper explanation because I started out this stream talking about choice, and to me,
Yeah.
in every one of those 10 events, your active choice would play the role, like whether you choose to go
Yes.
with a genetic tendency or you choose to go with some other factor. But it doesn't seem like any of that would be predetermined by genetics.
No, it's not predetermined. It's just a tendency. It's a
A
predisposition.
tendency for your choice to align with
Yes.
your natural impulse.
Yeah, your genetics push your choices in certain ways, but it doesn't force it, at least not
It seems so hard
majorly.
to generalize about any of that when it comes to individual
Yeah.
choices. That's
Well,
like predicting how any one person's going to play a poker game or
yeah, it's
board
impossible.
game.
But if you have 1,000 people and you have observed that these 1,000 people share these tendencies, then you can generalize. Like that's the thing, you cannot predict anything in good accuracy on the individual level, but on the statistically relevant level, if you have enough people, you can. That's sort of psychology. That's
Well,
why you always
you
live
can
in
get
groups.
a picture of tendencies, but then
Yeah.
how does that translate back down to any one individual? That's what I never understood.
Yeah. Well, you're in luck though, because next year one of the courses I'll have is biology and psychology, biology and genetics, or whatever. So I'll
Oh,
have
I
a
can't
deep
wait. Well,
dive into
then,
that.
yeah, ask them that. See what they say.
Yeah, it's interesting topics. I'm actually excited for next year because I don't know what I think about cognitive psychology, and I'm not gonna comment on it because well, when I began psychology, I had a lot of you could say, what is it called? I had a lot of not bigotry. I had a lot of predetermined opinions about social psychology that were negative. What do you call that? You,
I don't know. Bias, prejudice,
yeah,
something.
yeah. I had a bias against social psychology because my experience with that in high school was really crappy, and I sort of had developed the view that this isn't worth much. This is worthless. But then, as I've had it, I've actually grown to like it and understand it and appreciate it. And so I don't want to disparage cognitive psychology in the same way because I don't have any experience with it. I've matured, you can say. I no longer just give off my opinions without any any backing. Like I remember in the summer before I began psychology, I talked on here about my subjects I was going to have, and I remember having some negative comments about social psychology because I believed it was going to be worthless or not as scientific or sort of the middle child nobody likes. But then as I had it, I grew to like it, and so I don't want to do the same mistake with cognitive psychology.
Yeah, go in with an open mind. Be high in openness.
Yeah. Uh,
Sean, are you there? Do we have you today? Is your mic
Yep.
working?
Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3.
Hello?
Testing.
I think we do.
yeah,
I think
hello.
so far so good. What's up?
Yeah, this psychology stuff is interesting. Did you see the debate there on that channel there? What do you think about that debate there you were talking about
Which
yesterday,
one?
2 days ago? About psychology. If is psychology pseudoscience or not?
Oh, you talking about the one James did?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was such a great debate. It was. I'll find the link. Um, it was James Life Talks and what's his name, JS Urban Adventures. And James did such a fantastic job. They're both spiritual and religious, but James did a great job of arguing for the practical scientific side of psychology and kind of compartmentalizing the religion part away from that. And he was very focused the whole time. And the other guy did a decent job arguing the other side, but I think he confused the categories a little bit more than James did. But let me find that debate.
But it was interesting that he said that a lot of the studies that psychology done and they replicated them and a lot of them failed or something, like only 30% of them replicated or something.
Because when people use the word psychology, they're talking about like 5 or 6 different things. Sometimes they're talking about research and studies. Sometimes they're talking about actual mental health symptoms. Sometimes they're talking about the praxis of helping alleviate certain conditions. And so it's a broad term that I think is more useful if people can break it down into its individual components. And research and the science side is only one side of psychology. I don't care about studies. I don't care about which ones replicate and which ones don't. And this one scientist did this one study that proves that one study doesn't prove anything. That's not how science works. And so that part of the psychology conversation has much less relevance to me than the core principles, the fundamental assumptions, and the actual mental health symptoms themselves. And that's what that other guy was doing. He kept switching from studies this, studies that, and it was clouding, I think, the points that they were both trying to make. Besides, psychology, it to me is a soft science anyway. It doesn't have the empirical and experimental rigor of the hard sciences because there's only so much that's observable about the human mind. You can observe behavior. That's really about
Well,
it. Everything
and
else
also,
is
Jeff,
self-report.
and also, Jeff, that there. Okay, so there is a branch of psychology that tries to be as scientific as possible, and it's behaviorism, and it just studies behavior because that's the
Right.
only one you can
And there's
identify.
neuroscience and
Yes,
psychiatry.
yeah. However, all these uber scientific psychological fields, they depend on the idea that yeah, there is some logic and determinism to human action, belief, and feelings, which that isn't clear. It's like you have to have this sort of basically religious assumption that humans are deterministic to be able to call it a science. Because if you observe behavior and you don't believe behavior is deterministic, how can you know if stimulus A caused reaction B? Like, how can
Right.
you know? You
Yeah.
cannot know. And so you have to have that so basically religious belief, which is sort of why I'm not a fan. Or I am a fan of it because it did a lot of great research and did a lot, but I'm also an opponent of behaviorism because it's reliant on this idea that humans are deterministic, which I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't like the assumption that that's just how it
It
is.
only takes you so far.
Yeah.
That's why when people talk about psychology as a science, I need to know what specifically are they studying and what is their methodology. Because not all of psychology works the same way the other sciences do. So I think it's only a science to the degree that you're studying that what part of psychology you're studying is being studied scientifically, and that's
My
definitely not all of it.
my teacher in methodology, I think she put it really well because she talked about this. How is psychology a science or not? Like, is it hard like STEM or not? And she basically said, okay, there's some areas of psychology, specifically those that deal with qualitative research, that are basically just philosophy with some scientific wordings. And then there's the rest of science, which tries to follow the scientific process, but it's basically like mathematics. Like, there's a difference between mathematics and physics, or mathematics and biology. Like, psychology is kind of like mathematics in that way, that it isn't, it's sort of abstracted out of
Yeah, it's
reality. It can't be,
inferential and deductive.
yes, it can't really be as hard science as biology can. It has to have its own structure, own system. It's abstracted out. So no, it is scientific, but it is not a science in the
It's
definition of.
only scientific to the extent that it is a science. So to say that only parts of it are science, but the parts that are not science are still scientific, to me is a contradiction.
I guess so, but
It's
that's, in my
scientism at
opinion,
best, but
you should
we
split
need a
off.
whole new way of talking about psychology. The not you have neuroscience, you have psychiatry, and possibly behaviorism. So if you limit the science conversations to those three fields, maybe you could talk about it scientifically. But
Okay,
outside of that, we need quit using the language of science. We need some other language to talk about it in. Same
well,
with sociology and the humanities.
if you go on individual subcategories of psychology, for example, personality psychology, that is largely scientific because it's sort of.
I would disagree. In fact, the Big Five is based on linguistic analysis. So it's scientific in the fact that it's studying language, but then when you try to connect it to human personality and consciousness, I think you've stepped out of that
Well,
scientific rigor. It's more a
then
branch of
actually though,
linguistics.
I have to disagree somewhat because there's a big difference between they developed a model first based on linguistics and they tested it and actually found that okay, this
Right, but
has a lot of weight.
the linguistic part was empirical, but then with the part they applied it to test it is not empirically observable. That's when you've reached that domain of personality, thought, emotion, all the other stuff that behaviorism um, dismisses as metaphysic.
Well, okay,
So
actually though, you have to, that is like personality
I
is
think
about.
the connecting the linguistic element to the cognitive interpersonal element is where the science starts to break down. And to say they've tested it, they you can't. How do you test linguistics?
I'll be honest, I don't think I fully understand your critique. But like,
Well, maybe we
one
can get
big,
some help from ChatGPT. And I also
sure,
want to hear Sean's take
yeah.
on the debate real quick. Let's see. Can you break down the
Off, so
scientific validity of the big five personality studies, I guess? Okay, they use factor analysis. Cross-cultural, let's see, the big five traits have been...
Funnily enough, I actually wrote about this on the exam on how they developed the big five, because they had the assumption that our language is reflective of the traits or how we view personality. Like if you have the words we use to describe a person's personality is reflective of the personality itself, and then you pick out.
Yeah, but how do you
words and see
test
how they
that?
relate.
Like how that right there is a big assumption.
Yes, it is a big assumption, but the fact that you could make models from it that seem to be consistent through time with the same individual, and also consistent in the same that if you
But I don't think it's the same type of models that a physicist would make or
it's
an
not.
astronomer would make.
Actually, I
That's
won't
what
say
I'm
it's
saying
not.
when like.
I won't disagree because I don't know, but I'll say that maybe you're right, and you're probably right, but I don't know if you're actually right because I don't know the fundamental way they structure the.
Well, they structure it based on physical, like quantifiable, observable observations that they can test with experiments and replicate. And what are they when you say that people use what did you say how they use words to describe personality?
Okay.
That's not observable and quantifiable the same way an atom is, or the movements of a planet, or the gravity or stuff like
I
that.
suppose it's not. It's probably not, but
and that's important to me if you're doing science to be very specific about what it is you're observing and testing. And then there's the hard science also have math behind it, so they have mathematical equations that they can use to make inferences and deductions that if does the math work out or not, and if the math works out, that tends to support the conclusions and the inferences that they're making. But psychology doesn't. There's no math you can do on the human personality to show the connection between certain words, and so it's a different domain.
Well, that's exactly what you do, though. You try to okay. There is a lot of theory making because when you found these clusters of words that you think relate, and you try to do factor analysis.
But what are the variables then? Because in a math equation, the variables represent physical quantities and constants, etc. So what would the variables in a psychological equation?
The variables are personality traits, and
but those are not observed. Those are not empirically
exactly.
Observed.
That's sort of a personality trait is a general tendency. It's not a specific action. It's not.
So it wouldn't work the same as math, like a physics equation.
No, but you can do, if you find out that, okay, these actions, they correlate with each other to a certain degree, and then you can see that there's two clusters, which are then a bit above, correlate with each other more, and then there's nothing else. Then you can have a structure where, okay, here's the general tendency, which it influences these to a large extent, and then it influences a bit less down. Like it's all, what do you call it, Bayesian, it's all statistics. It's no, like, that's sort of the difference between most STEM and psychology, is that psychology can only deal with statistics. And so it can only deal in generalities. And the moment you only look at a single individual or a small number of individual, it doesn't work because it's all generalities. So on a large scale, it will work. If you take an...
But it doesn't apply or refer to anything concrete. So as a physics equation can be applied to a concrete atom, like an actual atom.
Actually, though, there is a decent amount of recent research that suggests that the big five can further be factored down to the great two, so stability and plasticity, and that these two basically correlate to the dopaminergic system and the serotonergic system. And so you're
In what
starting to
way?
find in the way that there is, again, it's still statistical in correlation, but that a high basal serotonergic activity correlates to, I believe that was high stability, and which stability again is conscientiousness, agreeableness, and then the reverse of neuroticism, so low neuroticism, and then you can see that the dopaminergic system seems to be correlated to plasticity, which again mostly correlates to, or goes down, you could say, to extroversion, high extroversion, and high openness. And then underneath those again, you have the facets, and then from those facets you have specific inclinations, and then underneath specific inclinations again, you have behaviors. There's multiple steps where you lose some statistical power for each step down, but they're all correlated with each other. It's all general tendencies.
So the most you can arrive at is correlation.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I would say that's different than science, which seeks causation and models that you can explain and predict from.
Well, you can have causation, but you can never be sure if it's true. Like, the goal is to find causation, but you can only be so sure it is caused.
What is the motive for is it just a scientific bias, like a cultural bias that is trying to tie psychology so firmly to the hard science, like the methodology of the hard sciences? Like, what if there's a completely different way of studying psychology that is not science, but will yield better models and better results? It seems like this bias towards science is psychologists are getting in their own way with it, like by thinking they have to make it into a science first before it has validity.
I do think you're correct that that's a problem, but a lot of people are trying or are purposefully just a lot of quantitative research is purposely that the scientific method is trash. Let's do something different.
It's proven itself for centuries. Whoever's calling it trash, I don't know what they're even looking at.
They reject it, especially in considering.
Well, they're just idiots. They're rejecting something that very obviously demonstrates itself over and over and over.
Yeah,
so that's rejecting the round Earth or gravity or other stuff. But the thing, I think philosophically, the barrier to psychological advance is the hard problem of consciousness. Until that is solved, psychology is always going to hit this pseudoscience wall.
I'll be honest, I think sort of the way that Freud and Jung did their psychology is closer to what you'd imagine, because they were scientific, they were rigorous, they did statistics. However, they also just made inferences and ideas and were very...
I think Freud and Jung were both more mythological than scientific.
And I think mythology is key. I think that's key. Like,
right, but that also is not science.
No, but they're still compiling it in a way that's trying to be scientific and try to make... They try to... At least Freud. I know Jung, he sort of diverged and just did his own thing as he got further and further. But Freud, to the end, was very adamant that this is a science, the scientific study of the unconscious.
It's a mythology. It's speculation. It's inference. It's aesthetics.
Yeah. And, well, to be fair, though,
very powerful of all of that, but not science.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the matter of proof, but I would say we have pretty decently proven that something like the unconscious can be defined. That we are not consciously aware of everything. Our beings are not fully rational, and in that sense, Freud was right. Like, that's an idea that he
but even the Greeks knew that.
Yeah, sure. But around the time of Freud, the predominant Enlightenment idea was that no, we're rational creatures and we're conscious, rational creatures. And Freud kind of and that wasn't based.
Well, I think we're both. Rigor. I think we very clearly demonstrate rationality. In certain moments, and I think it coexists with our evolutionary primitive, which like it's what we call irrationality is not irrational. It's just primitive. So to us, I don't know why we call it irrational. Our sex drives and our tendency to violence and our appetites and all of that, they're completely rational in the animal kingdom. And for the survival of the species, for the perpetuation of the species, so to call it irrational
A better
always
term
seemed
is
like an
logic.
odd choice of words to me.
A better term is logic and like non-logic, because
Yeah,
those
maybe.
aren't logical behaviors in the sense that they are deterministic 1 + 1 or cause and effect, but they're still a vital part of us that's very important to our survival. They're still half of who we are, but they're not logical in the same way that our rational enlightenment thinking is. It's two different things, and rejecting one is very detrimental. You need both. They're part of you. They're what makes you you. But now, Jeff, I think I'm going to leave.
Okay, well, your timing is perfect because I'm going to be wrapping up here soon to go to my other thing.
All right, and Merry
Bye
Christmas
bye.
again, and enjoy your membership.
Well, no, you enjoy it. I'm so glad we get to see you in green now. It looks good on you, and just in time for the holidays.
Yeah. Good night.
Okay, good night, Dobes. Take care. Sean, I'm interested in your thoughts on the
All right.
debate.
Well, it was interesting when you were talking there. I didn't understand a lot of. I didn't understand probably half, but I don't have a good vocabulary.
I don't know
But
if
I'm
any of us
interested.
did
It's
actually.
yeah, it's like that the that psychology thing being less scientific than other things. Yeah, it could be true, but I think science makes everything better because it's the best way to find the truth. So, if they
A
apply
certain
more
type of
science to
truth.
their psychology, what other
Science is
truths can
really
you
good
have?
at finding truths about the physical world and how that works. But
But what
psychology,
other
I don't know
truths
if
can
you're
you?
completely dealing with the physical world because you have mind, and we haven't been able to crack the problem of what mind actually is.
Oh, you're talking about consciousness and the soul and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's some people I follow that they're saying that consciousness is not even real, that it's just chemicals in your brain or something.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
we don't
I
know
don't
what it
understand
is.
half.
So without knowing exactly what we're studying, it's like gravity. Before they discovered gravity, they knew there was something that caused bodies to fall toward each other and something to cause the planets to orbit around suns, but they didn't know what that something was. And so we know there's something called consciousness that's able to be conscious, but without knowing what that thing is, I don't know how we could study it scientifically yet.
Well, actually, I don't even know what exactly what consciousness means. Is that like a your thinking or something?
I don't To me it's being aware, or being aware that you're aware. It's the part of our, like, we're aware of day-to-day data. We're aware of our environment, other people. But we even have consciousness when we sleep with dreams. We're aware of our dreams too. So I think anytime you're aware of anything, you have consciousness, and you're not aware of anything, you have non-consciousness. You're either completely asleep or dead or in a coma. But what
But could
we
you say
don't
that
know
that's just
what that.
chemicals, electrons,
I think
atoms?
there's probably a chemical basis to it, but they haven't figured out exactly how that works.
Because consciousness sounds to me like it's similar to the soul or the spirit or something.
It could be, yeah.
Maybe.
There's some people that think that it has a non-material component to it as well. That it's not something strictly physical, but we don't know. There's not a good way to test the non-physical stuff. So we have to work off of speculation and inference. And I mean, we've gotten as far as we've gotten in the modern world, but it's not very far as science is concerned.
But
So
what would
we
be
we
the
just
the
don't know.
downside of not having But why? So let's say hypothetically we all accepted that there's no consciousness. That consciousness is just the stuff that happens in your brain, chemicals and stuff. What what would that solve, or what would that not solve? Why do they care so much about this consciousness stuff?
I think one reason they care so much is because they don't know what it is. So any problem that's unsolved is going to interest scientists. Um, but also, like everything we talk about related to thought, emotion, personality, will, cognition, even behavior, what consciousness is seems to be foundational to studying or talking about any of those things.
Right, but in the future, let's say we find out it's all just chemicals. Then in the future, we'll be able to. They say that scientists will be able to, like, if there's no free will, that we'll be able to predict exactly what you'll do if we know exactly what everything that happens in the brain and everything.
Yeah,
So
I
if
don't
there's
think
no
we'll
free will,
get there. But yeah, like
yeah, which is
ideally, if consciousness turns out to be purely a scientific, a phenomena that can be explained by science, theoretically, you'd be able to build an explanatory model that could predict whatever you try to predict about the outcomes of consciousness. I'm not confident they're going to get there because I don't think human behavior can be reduced to that kind of a model yet. But consciousness is still the barrier. So without being able to figure out what consciousness is and what its role in that process is, I don't think we're going to have that model.
right. And there's a lot of psychologists like Jordan Peterson and stuff that believe in the spiritual
And he's
soul
one of the
stuff.
researchers that helped come up with the Big Five in the first place, which is the current like model of personality that's generally accepted as the most valid or correspondent.
Really interesting. Because I kind of disagree with a lot of what he says, especially about religion. And so it's just funny that he's a famous psychologist, but I disagree with a lot of what he says.
Yeah, and he's not really saying anything different like that the people that came like Carl Jung, Joseph Campbell, Northrop Frye, there's been plenty of other people that study myths and mythology and religion and culture and anthropology have said before him. I just think it's, for me, you can talk about all of that. That's why I like Northrop Frye so much, because he's a literary critic. He talks about it as it shows up in literary works, like written works and art and things like that. So you can talk about all of this stuff without necessarily needing to tie it to science. But for some reason, people, I think they don't think it has the validity. They want it to have a validity to it that so that people can accept the truth value of it, and they turn to science for that validity. And I'm not sure. I think you can still talk about all of this, and it can be persuasive and convincing without necessarily needing the backing of science to do so. Like people have been talking about things in the Bible, and we have the classical Greek tradition and Shakespeare and all that stuff, and all of that has had profound meaning and significance to people, and we've been able to talk about it. It has relevance to our lives. It helps to illuminate our lives and it helps us understand ourselves. It applies to our lives, and we can continue to draw on that and talk about it without necessarily needing science and a lab to say, okay, it's okay to talk about these things because they have scientific truth behind them. I think ever since the scientific revolution, anything that can't be explained by science gets bumped down to a secondary status of relevance or truth. And I think all of this stuff still has relevance, and it has a certain kind of truth, maybe not a scientific truth, that is still useful to us. And I think trying to use the language of science in order to continue to make use of this stuff may be just a bias or prejudice of the modern world. that I think this stuff still has value independent of science. And so I don't know why. I mean, I kind of do know why because I understand the scientific impulse. But I think you need to be clear about what you're studying, what questions you're asking, what you're asking those questions about, and what you're wanting to know from those questions. And I think if you're clear on that, you may not need the science part of it as much as people seem to think they do.
Well,
But
yeah,
real
we
quick,
find
because I'm gonna have to
value.
wrap up. I'm gonna have to wrap up in a few minutes. But real quick, I want to get your thoughts on the James debate.
Well, I kind of thought that the Christian fella saying that Christianity can replace psychology with religious therapy or something. I thought that was a bit weird. You know, he thought that psychology could be replaced with believing in the Bible, Jesus, and help Christians helping the mentally ill with, like, I don't know, religious stuff. I thought it was not serious at all. What do you
Well, and
think?
that's what I mean. Before there was like the practice of psychology or psychotherapy or whatever. A lot of people did use religion for that, and even in my culture, very few people talk about mental health. If you're having a mental health issue, it's pray about it, talk to Jesus, go see your priest. Like they turn to religion as the solution for all of that. Hey, Alan, what's up? I'm about to wrap up, but it's good to see you. Well,
No,
maybe
but I understand
oh, go ahead.
the criticism about using too many drugs and what else? That there's loads of mental health problems now because the DSM-5 adds more mental health problems, so people are getting diagnosed with more and more mental health stuff, which I maybe kind of agree, but I still think, like he said, I agree with changing it, but I don't agree with changing it with religion. Like,
And I say use whatever works. And if religion helps some people deal with their mental health stuff, then use it. But medication helps in certain situations. So I don't want to take medication off completely. I just want to use it more intelligently. Hey, Dino, everyone's showing up just as I'm about to wrap up. I have another thing to go to in about 5 minutes. And so I have to cut this one short today. But maybe tomorrow, if we don't, I may have a special guest tomorrow. I'll know more later. But if I don't, then maybe we can continue this conversation tomorrow because I think it's a good one.
all right, good conversation, Jeff. Thanks for letting me on. See ya.
Oh, yeah, you
Bye.
too. Thanks for coming up, Sean.
Bye.
Okay, we'll talk more. Sorry, guys, I have to go today. I only have 2 hours to stream today. But if I'm not out later tonight, I might. Tomorrow, if I have my guest, we're going to be starting an hour later at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. If not, I'll do a regular stream at the usual time, 4 p.m/1 p.m. And other than that, I will see you then. Have a good rest of your day. And sorry I have to cut it so short today. All right. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you. Let's get the music going.